So Joe Scarborough is now trying to win back fans, folks. He hasn't done enough. He didn't go and meet with Donald Trump after Trump won, after he's a threat to fascism. He's horrible. He's terrible. We'll never have democracy in this country. And, some of that stuff is anywhere from very true to perhaps true. But Scarborough, of course, was saying all of that while planning to go meet with Donald Trump, probably, if he won. He did. And as I said before, he and Mika were just pissed at Donald Trump because Trump insulted them. Because you can't criticize Trump at all or he insults you. The other Trump suck-ups are okay with that. They just ignore it when he insults them. Like Lindsey Graham just comes back like a little puppy nipping at his heels for more. Whereas in Joe's case, he wouldn't. At that time, he was angry because he's like Trump. He's more like Trump than he would ever admit. Pensacola boy, grew up, thinks he's a tough guy, thinks he's much smarter than he is, thinks he's much more clever, thinks he's much wittier, thinks he's much better looking, thinks he's much everything. He lectured us all on family values in the 90s and then ditched, his first wife for his second wife and then ditched his second wife for Mika, his co-host, because he's chock full of family values, man. That guy has got so much family values. It's pouring out of those really cool glasses that he wears. Aren't those things like they're little and cool? Like he's a stud, that man. So Joe's now trying to win people back on the left. He's actually insulting Trump more and sticking up for people. Like people come on their show and defend Trump, and he and Mika get mad at them. They don't realize the damage was done. Nobody, rules about marketing, branding, these kinds of things. When you do something awful and horrible, first of all, you're in big trouble when you betray your core audience. It's why no one's going to buy a Tesla in the United States anymore, and really Western Europe or anywhere. Elon Musk is an actual idiot, and the only way Tesla is going to do okay is if he can, cozy up to China enough that they'll buy them for him. So that's how with his giga factory in Shanghai. And then that's how where Elon's loyalties lie and what a danger he is in the government, because you don't think he's going to share anything he can find with China. Yeah. I've got a spaceship to tell you that will probably blow up in space because it was made by Elon. Okay. Back to Joe Scarborough. He thinks he's going to fool people to coming back. But another rule is that if you do something during a time when, by bad luck, if something happens to you and something terrible during a time when there isn't a lot for the news to report on, you're really screwed. Because Joe and Mika had saturation coverage of their betrayal of their viewers and everyone else for like 2 weeks straight. There weren't the LA wildfires. There hadn't been that attack in New Orleans. I'm not saying any of these things are good. I'm just saying if there's something else taking up the news, you're much less likely you get knocked off the lead story, and it's not as bad. I always point out, and this may be going too far back for some of you guys, but there was the August of September of 2001 when the news was all like shark bite stories, even though one or two of them happened and other stupid things. And there was that whole Chandra Levy, Gary Condit, a Democratic congressman, having the affair. Turned out eventually she disappeared, and sadly somebody murdered her. I don't even know what the end result. They caught the person, but they suspected it could have been Condit because he's having an affair with her. He was exonerated from that, but the affair was everywhere, and he ended up losing Congress for that, because back then you lost Congress for stuff like that. Well, had it been a few weeks later, 9/11 would have happened, and I promise you, nobody would have known about Gary Condit or Chandra Levy. It would have been a 1-minute story, but it happened 3 weeks earlier, and it ended his career. Which is to say, luck isn't everything, but it's a lot of things. And Joe and Mika, who got a lot of luck for how this random congressman who isn't particularly good at anything landed a TV show, a morning show after his crappy night show at MSNBC. I'm sure he kissed a lot of butt, but why? He had no experience as a journalist. He was just a right-wing idiot congressman. Okay. Well, one of the ways he decides he's going to win over the left now is decrying how government has cut spending, that we haven't provided the infrastructure to fight these forest fires. We have gone, we have cut and cut and cut. So California wasn't in a position where they were ready because of what short-sighted politicians have done, right? Because Joe's smarter than they are. And he talked all about this on his show, and cutting the infrastructure and the rest. Hey, any of you guys want to guess when Joe first ran for Congress, I believe he won in the class of 94, that infamous class that supported Newt Gingrich. What the main thing he wanted to do was, could you think you could remember what he ran on? Right. Cutting government, everything. If you think that getting rid of the Department of Education is a Donald Trump creation, no, Joe Scarborough was pushing that. He was one of the first ones to push getting rid of the Department of Education 25 years ago, something like that. Right? He, back then, was pushing for government to cut all programs across the board because they had to balance the budget. So you had to have a couple percent across the board randomly. Didn't matter how important the program was, like cancer research now, whatever it might be. We just had to cut funding. People would have to suffer. It's just the way it would have to be because government can't spend more than it takes in. We all know it's a bunch of garbage if you understand Keynesian economics, and I'm not going to go into all that. So Joe Scarborough, when he came in, he was a little bit of a different guy. You know, I mean, that slashed infrastructure now is like the worst thing in the world, right? I mean, it's like, even Katrina in 2004, he tried to go back to that. Say, we hadn't built up the infrastructure. Do you know who cut the funding for infrastructure to do things like fortify cities like New Orleans? Yeah. Scarborough was one of the leading voices on that. Okay. That's how bad he is. Like, this I have to get for you because I want to make sure I even get like the specific facts right on Joe Scarborough and what a hypocrite he is. All right. Are we all still with me? Have I frozen up enough times yet? Right. There we are. Oh, this is so annoying. Okay. And again, this is nothing to do with me here. So freezing for a second. We'll hope that we're going fine now. All right. So Joe Scarborough. Let's talk about what he wanted to cut when he got elected. Oh, my God. Well, look, guys, he had a lifetime 95% rating from the American Conservative Union. You know who they are, right? Right. The American Conservative Union. That's the people that used to sponsor, if they still do. Now, maybe it's TPUSA, whatever, CPAC. He was on the Armed Services Judiciary Reform Committee. Oh, isn't that nice? The New Federalists, which he led, a group called the New Federalists, called for sweeping cuts in U.S. government, including plans to, quote, privatize, localize, consolidate, or eliminate the departments of commerce, education, energy, and urban development. He was the head of that group that wanted to privatize. Let me say this again, the departments of commerce, education, energy, and housing and urban development. Gee, do you think some of those grants that come from places like housing and urban development and some of those other programs are how we're able to build up some of the neighborhoods we're able to build up and fortify them, make them stronger for when hurricanes and wildfires come? Yes. I see in there from Lefty Graham, he's a Newt Gingrich acolyte. He was one of his lieutenants. It wasn't just like he was literally by his side. I mean, there couldn't be a bigger hypocrisy. This guy led the effort to cut government, to cut its ability to do anything for us, including taking care of disasters. But wait, there's more. He obviously also, on the House Budget Committee, as I said, proposed a budget that cut across the board. We're cutting everything. You want cancer research? You want Alzheimer's research? You want Parkinson's research? Don't look to Joe Scarborough. You want to make sure your bridges, your roads, your tunnels aren't coming crashing down on you or falling in the water. Don't look to Joe Scarborough. You want to make sure your airplanes are flying safely in the sky. Don't look to Joe Scarborough. You want to make sure you can eat your food without being poisoned, without getting E. coli. Don't look to Joe Scarborough. He was in favor of all of this, like a leader. And now he has the gall to go there to try to save his ass on MSNBC by lying about it all, by retconning his entire past, pretending he's some moderate to liberal who understands that the reason that the wildfires got so bad is because we didn't provide the infrastructure. Yes, damn right. You didn't provide the infrastructure. Lying son of a bitch. It was you. It was you. You and your friends like Gingrich, another 3-time married philanderer. So please stop the gaslighting, stop the lying, and get fired already. Again, I don't know what you have to do there at MSNBC to lose your job. Compared it to George Costanza, if he came out in the Babe Ruth uniform and spilled crap all over it, could he get fired? If he came on the TV naked at some point and started waving his wang around, could he get fired from that? What does Joe Scarborough have to do besides crush the rest of the network with people who won't watch anymore and lose like 50 to 60% of his ratings? I don't know, but I guess we're all going to find out. In the meantime, Watch Joe's hypocrisy, his lies, his garbage, his pretending once again. So he was on their side, then he was on our side, then he was on their side, then he was on our side again. Watch as then on their side, I believe, and now he's back on our side again. So this time you should really trust him. Pay much attention as liberal Joe Scarborough sits there and argues for investments in infrastructure, the exact opposite of what his entire political career was built on.